So, hello everyone. Welcome to the second day of the Forge training. This one will concentrate on Viewer Hubs models. Later I will show you a demo what's that about. The very first day you were concentrating on watching the models. Now we are watching the models, but already existing in Autodesk infrastructure. So as I said, my name is Dennis Grigor. I work for Autodesk for about 5 years or so, and I'm mainly responsible for supporting Forge APIs, and also I'm supporting the 3ds Max SDK, the desktop one, the C++, Python, sometimes Max script. The purpose of this training is to do a sort of a blitz overview of the tutorials that we have. And as I said, in the first day, you were looking at how actually create buckets, how to upload your models, how to translate them, and how to visualize them. And in this case, we are doing something like a 30 minutes presentation of a chunk. Then we are leaving you for about an hour or an hour and a half to do by yourself. Meantime, we'll kind of answer to your questions, if any. We'll stay live for 6-7 hours. So you can jump in, leave without any problem. This presentation will be scheduled. So I will present the schedule in a minute. But the purpose of this tutorial right now is to have an application, something like that. You will authenticate with your Autodesk credentials. You will have access to your hubs, be it on BIM 360, be it in Fusion 360, and you can visualize the different versions of your model. In general, the agenda is the following. So here I don't have exact time, only because we are in different time zones. So for instance, I'm based in Montreal, someone is based on the West Coast, someone in Central, and so forth. So to avoid that, we will reference, as my colleague wisely noted, as a T. So now we are in time T. In T+2, which means in 2 hours, we'll go to the next step, and so forth. 4 hours in 6 hours. As I mentioned, the very first 30 minutes will be a presentation, what to do, where to find the information. And then you will be given an amount of time to do that job. I will accept any questions in meantime. Then we will do the review to see if there are still unanswered questions. And then we will proceed with T2, so create service authentication basics. The same manner, later we'll look at list hubs, projects, and user info. And finally, we will go and touch viewer and show the model in the viewer. If you have questions, you should have on your interface a Q&A. If they will not be too crowded, then we can even raise hands and maybe to make it more interactive. So I can give you access to a microphone to ask a general question, but better to keep in this way. Anytime, just refer to Q&A, put it the question. If the question is interesting, I will announce it to everyone. Maybe other attendees also have the very same questions, but we're afraid to ask. Don't hesitate. Ask anything, and no matter how how easy or simple question. I don't want to name it stupid, but doesn't matter the level of the question because we all were beginners. So there are some questions that indeed I never ask myself, and if I'm asked by someone, I'm okay, paralyzed. Indeed, I never asked this question myself. And now we start with the basic setup. If you attended yesterday class, this is more or less the same. I just want to remind you that you are now on Nodejs track. In parallel with this class is now, this is a Nodejs track, but parallel with this class, there is a .NET one given by my colleague Augusto. So if you are Node.js programmer, then this is your track. If you are interested in .NET, then it is another track. I said if you know Node.js, but we are basically do some hand holdings here. So even if you are like Python programmer and you just want to jump in, I think it is enough information here to get you started. And there are two requirements here. The very first thing is to create a Forge account. And the second is to create a Forge app. So let me just illustrate you this quickly. First of all, we should not be confused about the Autodesk account and the Forge account. So Autodesk account is a customer account, but the Forge account is a developer account. So here at Forge Autodesk, you just sign in. If you don't have an account, it's easy to create. You have a trial for 90 days now. I will start with one non-Autodesk one, so you can see clearly how it goes. And you see here, I don't have any apps. The very first thing that we need to do is to create an app. When you are creating an app, you can choose which API to authorize. Or let's say that better way, something like which API will be used by this Forge application. And this is sometimes kind of ignored. So everyone is speaking everything. But I like to keep things kind of streamlined. So for instance, I will not be using reality capture here. I will not using the toxin flag here, and so forth. Webhooks also, but I may extend later. The model derivative, but for the viewer we will need it. So let's keep it this way. Why is that important? Because otherwise you tend to create one application, use it in different other kind of services, and then if your credentials are compromised, then you basically can change the kind of the credentials, but it means that you have to go and change for every service that you use this kind of this Forge application, and this could be daunting. So keep it simple: one service, one application, and in case you want to reuse it for reality capture, it just will tell you that it doesn't have access to this service, and you know that you are reusing another application. Here we have something like, I don't know, Forge training, something like that will remind you about what this application is about. Now we have one, maybe two, but later you will end up like, I don't know, dozens, and you need something to understand what's about that from that list. Training, if I can spell right. A brief description, again, for your reminding. The callback URL here is very important, and along the way, we will use it in different contexts. We tend to be consistent, and for each application or for each tutorial sample, we have the very same callback. But let me put just one dummy here for now. So HTTP, what we have like localhost, and put something like okay, come on, localhost like 3000 and callback. I want to put it this way because later when going through tutorial, we'll see the callback that we should put here. And I will show you later how actually we can change it, because maybe you don't want to create a new application. Maybe still you want to reuse one that you started by yourself, a BIM 360 oriented. And in order to adapt it to this sample, you will have to change the callback URL, and this will be a very good opportunity to see where actually you can change it. Yeah, just testing for the description and create an application. Everything is okay, create an application. Once the application is created, you will be given the client ID and client secret. And these were the credential that I mentioned you that my leak is somewhere, and then you have to call the regenerate. So for me, it is enough to just illustrate this thing, and here I have a leak. So better to hide it, regenerate, and be sure that this is totally different. This is a way to sort of make sure that even if it's leaked, there is no problem to continue later. And we went through creation of an application. Let's go back to the slides. The next step is that you need a user account. If you are Fusion user, you already have one. If you are BIM 360 user, you also have one. And basically, the purpose of this class is how to write an application that will access those information that you have. We are referencing here to A360, but this is not entirely true because A360 now is kind of going through reorg. So even if you'll try to go into the and sign in, it will automatically redirect you to, or it should be automatically redirecting you to Fusion. Okay. Nevertheless, if you have the problem with this one, let me just illustrate you the Fusion part. The Fusion part. So yes, I'm using another account because we are in this one. Again, I'm using one credential for as a developer and one as a customer. We should not confuse this one. As a developer, you can reuse the very same email, you can reuse no problem, but they are totally different accounts. So here I have, as expected, list of projects, different things. Here I have a plant box. Let me see if I can visualize it, and so forth. So this is the kind of, these are the data on the Autodesk infrastructure. And now I log in with my credentials, but it could be another customer. So you as a developer, you want to develop something that will tap into this data, into this kind of data. Let me illustrate another one. So hide floating one. Let me illustrating in BIM context. So in BIM context, we have something like that. So yeah, here we have the BIM docs. We have the projects. Let's see the projects details. And we have this very nice project. And we can visualize the 3D model of it. But this, again, is in context of a BIM infrastructure. Now, if you want to write your own application that will take this and do a lot of analytics on that, this is the purpose of this class. So we want to do something like that. Something like a simple application that will tap into our data. And as you can see here, the hubs I have both from Fusion and from BIM. I have the project files here, exactly the same thing that I had there. And what was called, this one is BIM project. I cannot find it. Yeah, this one maybe. I know the retail. Yeah, so the retail and the project itself. Yeah, so it's exactly the same thing. We have a couple of versions here. So we are tapping into this version. And we extend this project by providing a couple of things. Since we are in control of how actually everything here looks, interacts, and so forth, we can write extensions that will do a sort of a nested view. And along with our 3D model project list the 2D drawings or other assets that we have here. And so this is a simple extension. And also we can do add charts and so forth. Anyway, completion of this tutorial will give you how to say, a working project that you can later extend by adding different features and analyzing the data that are in the BIM. Oh, In this case, we have this chart here. If we look at the category, and we can do these kind of interactions and filter by the data that we need. Okay, going back to the presentation. Yeah, one requirement, and it should have been already known to you, is when you are writing a Forge application, especially you did yesterday that, you are on your own. So it means that you are owning the bucket, the place that you are placing the drawings or the models, and you just put the data there, but you are owning that bucket. Here you are tapping into data owned by or hosted by Autodesk. And this is why there are requirements about kind of accessing this data, but also authorization of your application. So here you have a tutorial that illustrates you how actually um, to provision your account so that your application can access this one. It's more complicated because in BIM context, you have to be authorized by admin. Or your application has to be authorized by admin in order to access that data. But if you don't have this authorization, you don't have this provisioned, no worries. You can work with the Fusion data, and the workflow is exactly the same or almost the same, except this provisioning step. Okay. So for this first part of the tutorial, we need two things. First, to install Node.js and to install Visual Studio Code. This is not a big deal. We are recommending installing the LTS. Yeah, I usually use just the latest one, but just install it. After that, go into your terminal. Let me put a new one here. Do something like node version to see the version, and npm is the installation package version to see which npm you have. And when it comes to Visual Studio Code, it's pretty the same. You just go to Visual Studio Code, download it, install it, and you will be presented with an UI like that. I think you're already familiar with Visual Studio Code, but if not, it is an interesting tool worth to master. The live demo I showed you along the way. So technically, this is the thing that you should do is to create an account if you don't have a Forge account, to create an app, kind of understand what lies there in that app, the client ID, the client secret, which API can be accessed that Forge app. And the second step is to install those tools. So Node.js and Visual Studio if you don't have. All that you have to do for the rest of the time, I mean, till we meet again in T+2, so it's basically in what it's like 1 hour and 40 minutes. All you have to do is install this, and technically, if you are familiar, and you should be familiar with Learn Forge Autodesk IO, we are following this tutorial. And again, you have to do just these two steps. Well, actually not. Sorry, you have to do these steps. 2 steps, tools and authentication. Just follow this track. It's not much. It's exactly what I showed you. And later we will go into detail about this workflow. That's it for now. Are there any questions? Let me see the participants. Yeah, the attendees. Okay, I don't see any questions. Yeah, since I don't see any questions, then it means that we will see again in 1 hour and 35 minutes. And along the way, I will keep this live. Just ask the questions, if any. And let me stop the recording.